Ladies and gentlemen, right at this very moment, top Democrats are absolutely losing their minds and melting down because President Trump just made one of the greatest political power plays of all time. You see, just yesterday afternoon, President Trump signed an executive order that's set to eliminate the completely failed Department of Education. Take a look.
Today we take a very historic action that was 45 years in the making. In a few moments, I will sign an executive order to begin eliminating the Federal Department of Education once and for all.
And so, folks, that right there is why top Democrats are losing their minds right now. You see, Democrats absolutely love their bloat in the federal government. They love the alphabet soup of bureaucracies, their useless commissions, and their mountains of red tape. So naturally, they worship the Department of Education, the gold standard of big government inefficiency. But now we have to be honest. Ever since the Department of Education went to work in 1980, our country's academic performance has absolutely plummeted. Back then, the United States ranked #1 in the world for education. Now, we're barely in the middle of the pack. As a nation, we have spent trillions of dollars at the Department of Education, and what do we have to show for it? Test scores haven't moved upwards in decades. Kids can't read. The Department of Education took America's top-ranked school system and ran it straight into the ground. But you know what's actually sort of depressingly funny? This entire situation with the Department of Education was entirely predictable. Take a look at this.
I propose, and would have already started, if your hypothesis is correct, a planned and orderly transfer back to the states and local communities of functions the federal government has usurped and which it has proven it is incapable of operating. And one of the first of those would be welfare. One of the second would be in the field of education. I would like to dissolve the $10 billion National Department of Education created by President Carter and turn schools back to the local school districts where we built the greatest public school system the world has ever seen. I think I can make a case that the decline in the quality of public education began when federal aid became federal interference.
Well, folks, I think it's safe to say that Ronald Reagan was absolutely right. For 45 years, the Department of Education has done nothing but interfere with our kids' ability to get a proper education. And now, finally, President Trump has pulled the plug. And you know what? Thank God he did. And so, like I said, right now, the Democrats are having an absolute meltdown about all of this. And we're going to take a look at that here in just a moment. But first, I want to say real quick, if you guys enjoy the daily news coverage, please consider subscribing to the channel because it really does help a ton. But okay, what do you folks say we take a look at what Senator Adam Shifty Schiff has to say about all of this? Today's illegal act by the Trump administration will have disastrous consequences for our schools. It will mean less resources for special education, for teacher training, and for individualized attention to the learning needs of each child. That these tax cuts are made to fund a tax cut for large corporations makes the sacrifice of our schools even more unbearable. So folks, all of that is just absolutely shameless fear-mongering. You know what? Let me try to break down how all of this actually works. Every year, the federal government has been pumping around $80 billion of taxpayer money into the Department of Education, which would then get divided up and split amongst the states. However, alongside that money came with some requirements to push various pieces of progressive agenda in the classroom. This is how it worked. If you wanted federal education funding, well, then you better be ready to push some critical race theory, gender theory, and all the rest of the ideological insanity the left wants in your child's classroom. But hey, if you don't believe me, take a look at this.
The Department of Education here in Washington, D.C. is overwhelmingly staffed by radical left Marxist bureaucrats who are in every way hostile to Western civilization, hostile to American interests, and hostile to our founding documents and culture. And so they are using their position and influence inside the Department of Education to try to force agendas like radical gender ideology, like critical race theory, like diversity, equity, and inclusion, and all kinds of anti-America curricula and policies on the American people, on our students, on our children. So it's taking away from parents the ability to control and direct the education of their own kids, of their own families. So what we're going to do under President Trump's leadership and direction is to return that authority to the greatest extent possible to the local level where parents can control outcomes, while at the same time making sure that no federal funds are used to support racism, to support gender ideology, or support other ideas and principles that are offensive to the American taxpayer.
So yeah, folks, all of this progressive ideological insanity that's been showing up in your children's classrooms for the last 10 to 15 years, you can thank the Department of Education for that. And so now, that $80 billion yearly budget won't be filtered through the DC progressive bureaucrats. Instead, it'll go directly into the states without all of the crazy strings attached. And I don't know about you, but I trust local school districts and the parents therein a whole lot more than I trust partisan Washington, D.C. swamp beasts. But now, folks, what do you say we take a peek at what Chuck Schumer had to say about all of this? Attempting to dismantle the Department of Education is one of the most destructive and devastating steps Donald Trump has ever taken. This will hurt kids. Listen, here's the reality. Our children have been suffering for 45 years, ever since the Department of Education went into effect. You know what? Why don't you guys take a look at what the White House Rapid Response Team posted just yesterday? The U.S. Department of Education has spent $3 trillion since 1979. Per pupil spending is up 245%. Student achievement, absolutely flat. Math and reading scores for 13-year-olds are the lowest they've been in decades. 6 out of every 10 fourth graders aren't proficient in math. 7 out of every 10 eighth graders aren't proficient in reading. The U.S. now ranks 28th in math amongst developed countries. Folks, these numbers are catastrophically bad. And you know what, folks? Let's just be absolutely clear for a moment. These are the lowest performance figures that our country has ever seen. Seriously, back in the 1890s, during the Industrial Revolution, when kids were working in factories, they were more educated than kids are right now. The Department of Education and all of the corruption and incompetence therein has completely destroyed our country's academic performance. And so, folks, here's my final thought on all of this. The Democrats can melt down all they want, but I personally could not be happier that this absolute embarrassment of a department is finally getting shut down. Now, folks, before we wrap up with today's video, I want to say real quick that I've actually gone ahead and made a community Facebook page where I'll be posting additional news and updates as it relates to all of this. So if you guys use Facebook, check out the pinned comment down below and give that page a follow. But now that is going to be a wrap for this video, everyone. So please go down below and drop a comment. Let me know what you think about all of this. Please like the video while you're down there. And hey, like I said earlier, please consider subscribing to the channel if you enjoy the daily news updates. Thank you all very much for tuning in today. And of course, as always, stay safe.